Okay. All right, let's get this going. Good evening, everyone. To all of you in this room and to all of our friends in the next room, hi, who unfortunately we didn't have room to seat here, but are comfortably seated with a glass of wine next door, so hello to you. And they'll be joining us for the Q&A part, where I'm sure we can make room for them for then. Anyway, welcome to the School of Visual Arts and to the MFA Design Criticism Programme, of which I'm the chair, and my name is Alice. Really great to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Wow, this is great. No, really great to see you all here tonight. I think it shows that you're as excited as we are about tonight's topic. I'll get through my housekeeping really quickly and we can skedaddle on to the main event. The main couple of things to tell you are that for more information about our MFA, and which is going to be turning into an MA later this year, watch this space for more details on this. You can visit our website. It gives details of all of our faculty, the curriculum, and our philosophy and approach to design, research, writing, and criticism. So check us out at decrit.sva.edu. And I also want to draw your attention to a postcard which is placed on most of your seats, which is advertising our 2-week summer intensive. We've done this for a couple of years now, and we're doing it again this summer. 2 weeks absolutely packed to the brim with tools, methods, insights, and approaches to design, research, and writing from some of the best people in the business. There are some fun testimonials on the email we sent out about it, so you might want to check that out, and I invite you to apply. It's very fun. One more notice, which is just that we are in the process of working with the second years to plan our annual Decrit conference, which is where the students showcase their research in front of a pretty large audience of design and media professionals from New York and around the world. This will be moderated this year by the architecture critic Justin McGuirk, and will be featuring speakers Eric Chen from Hong Kong, and 2 speakers from California, Sylvia Lavin and Peter Lunenfeld, along with all of our student speakers. So I think that promises to be a great day. May 2nd, it's called Lingua Franca, mark your calendars. All right, now here's where we are today. This is our spring lecture series, which each spring is conceived and curated and carefully stitched together by the students themselves, the first year students. I work with them closely to develop this list, and they are the ones who will be hosting the speakers during this season and conducting the Q&A. I'm really happy with the lineup we've got, and we've actually got another lecture happening this week. We're packing it in at the moment. We have the British critic Rick Poyner visiting us on Thursday, so come back again. And right now what I need to do is we like to do lots and lots of layers of introductions at Decrit. So what I would like to do now is introduce the introducer of tonight's speaker. Please welcome first year student Justin Zhuang.
Thank you. Wow, like
Where was your seat?
it's over there.
Okay, I'm going through.
Okay, that means I won't have a seat when I'm done.
No, okay.
Okay. Well, it's my first time doing the introductions, and I have a full house to stare back at me. Hi, my name is Justin. I'm a first-year student at Decrit. Have you ever looked at the world through your ears? Neither had I until I heard Radiolab, a podcast series and radio show produced by WNYC. A friend had introduced me to an episode on how we see colors. Yes, colors. Possibly the most visual subject one can imagine. In one segment of the show, its co-hosts illustrate how the rainbow looks completely different in colors through the eyes of a dog, a human being, a shrimp, and a butterfly, using only the sounds of a chorus. Without ever showing me any visuals, Radiolab painted one of the most colorful rainbows I've ever experienced in my life. Radiolab has also done stories on evolution, human nature, and even why we laugh. These powerful stories are composed for the ear, an organ that most design critics probably don't pay enough attention to, especially as we live in this visually stimulated world. How does Radiolab distill complex subjects in science and philosophy into compelling audio stories that anyone can easily understand and enjoy? It's related to a question we as design writers and critics often ask ourselves. What does it take to produce critical and entertaining content so that we can introduce design to a larger audience? Tonight, we're most fortunate to have the co-host of Radiolab, Robert Krulwich, to open our minds and ears. Krulwich is known for bringing science, technology, and economics to life in a style that is clear, compelling, and entertaining. Before Krulwich started on Radiolab a decade ago, he was already a television correspondent in ABC and CBS News. There, he won Emmy Awards for stories such as the cultural history of the Barbie doll, and also the distinction of TV Guide naming him the most inventive network reporter on television. Ladies and gentlemen, please lend your ears to Robert Krulwich.
Thank you. I gotta say, I'm completely flattered to have so many people come to this. I have done lectures where I did one in North Carolina where nobody came. It was during midterms, and the people who set it up didn't understand that everybody would be taking exams, but it was going to be on the radio station. So Al Hunt of the Wall Street Journal and I walked into a room with nobody except a microphone and my wife who drove us. And she sat and applauded happily and laughed at all of our laugh lines, and because we couldn't leave, it was painful to stay. So this is a huge improvement over that. So I decided I'd like to talk with you about design and routine, sort of I was thinking about it. Because when you're trying to make something new, when you're trying to make something fresh and something that makes people lean in, often what you're doing is you're playing with expectations. Because people, when they listen to the radio, or when they watch TV, or when they browse through a newspaper, or when they read a book, they have a way of doing it that is comfortable for them, and it's a way that they've gotten used to, and it's a way they don't quite know how committed they are to their routines. But people, I like listening to fresh air after cooking dinner, and that's when I listen to it. And if it changes time, I don't know what to do. I don't like it that way. Or I like to start with the sports section. I always start with the sports section. Someone takes the sports section, then I can't start the newspaper, kind of thing. And when the routine changes for whatever reason, when the station changes the show and moves it to another place, or when you change your life and you're no longer commuting like you used to, then everything for you changes. And if the story isn't told in the usual way, however, that I think is the really deep gamble. Because if an audience can't tell what you're about to do next, that's when whatever you're doing, writing, talking, performing, that's when you have a chance to really get under their skin or really make them very mad. And it is the nature of good design, certainly in journalism anyway, is to build your story very carefully, to tell its particulars, but you want the audience listening to you. They don't have to know why, but they just have to feel that it's kind of fresh and kind of different, and they just don't want to leave. And sometimes against their will, sometimes to their surprise, they just stick with you and they listen or they read and they watch the whole thing. Because whatever it is, it's got the attention. Now, the problem with this, it's an obvious goal. Everybody would want to do that. But this is what I'm going to talk about today. Playing with routines is a very, very tricky business. It's very hard to do, and in some circumstances, it's simply not allowed. So I'll give you my first case in point. One day, I was sitting over at ABC, and a guy sent me a tape. I popped the tape into the machine we had in my office, and I looked at it, and I just couldn't believe how amazing it was. It was about an octopus. And I looked at this thing, and I thought, oh! And I got so excited, I just ran downstairs to Peter Jennings' office, who I work for. I said, Peter, you have to see this thing about the octopus I just got. It's the best. I frankly think if you could lead the show with this thing, you probably will. I know there's things going on. He's hardly listening to me. But this is the best. This is probably, in 25 years of just randomly looking at animals doing things, this is the best animal, the best tape, the best moment I've ever seen. He's writing. And he looks up and he says, no. I said, you haven't seen anything? She said, no. I said, you haven't seen the tape. Let me just, here, you stay exactly where you are. I'll just put the tape in. Your eyes will be gripped, then glued, then fastened to the screen, because this is like nothing else. He says, no. He said, Has it not occurred to you, he said to me looking up, that the United States Army has just occupied Baghdad. We have just conquered some foreign city. An enormous commitment of manpower and money has been made. Saddam Hussein and his 2 sons have just gone missing. And the entire show is going to be about Iraq, not about, what did you say? An octopus? You have to put this octopus on, I said. He said, no, it's a Where's Saddam Day. I said, how about Where's Saddam, Where's Saddam, Where's Saddam, Where's Saddam? Octopus. We could maybe do it that way. He goes, no. I said, no, well, just watch it then. He goes, no. So then I said, okay, what if I made my octopus story about Saddam Hussein? And he looked at me. I just think the sheer bizarreness. He said, oh, well, definitely. So I am not proud of what I'm about to show you. But this is my Saddam octopus story. So this would be DVD number 1, and just stick it in. I wish that Peter had at least explained a little bit of the politics of this in introducing it, but he did not, of course. So just take a look at it. We have a little bit of a queuing issue, I guess. Okay. Here we go.
Saddam the dictator might want to meet Saddam the octopus.
Look, could you just back it up a little bit? It's not at the beginning. I think it's unfortunate. I mean, it's just a horrible thing to have to say.
Finally, this evening, in the name of survival, evolution has given many animals the ability to deceive their enemies, and none is more dramatic than the octopus.
At least you should have said something
Rich
about
material
I don't know.
for ABC's Robert Krulwich.
After Saddam and his son stole more than $1 billion, there's talk now that he is searching for a cosmetic surgeon to disguise himself. Well, Saddam the dictator might want to meet Saddam the octopus, because some octopuses really know how to disappear, says biologist Roger Hanlon.
This is what octopuses do for a living. They disappear all the time.
For example, Roger saw this bush in shallow Caribbean water, but as he moved closer, now watch the bush. Look at this. It turns into an octopus. It squirts ink and runs. That's good.
This one's one of the best.
We got to see this again. Let's go backwards before it ran away to when the octopus was all puffed up to look big and scary. And now, backwards and in slow motion, watch the eyes. You see how the pigment is changing back to a dark algae and rock color? And the skin, if you look, it's beginning to pucker. It becomes more rock-like. This is deliberate.
So if they see the algae next to them, they can mimic the algae.
Yeah, it's definitely getting lumpier all over, and this is happening. The muscle changes and the color changes. How long in real time?
It takes less than a second to make any of these changes, so they can become a rock in less than a second. It's instantaneous.
Gone. The octopus and its cousin, the cuttlefish, this is a cuttlefish, are simply, says Roger, the planet's masters of disguise. Nobody, watch this cuttlefish, nobody does it better. So if plastic surgeons could figure out what the octopus does, certain people might pay considerable sums of money, especially for a quick change.
I think the octopus can change its appearance as quickly as any animal on Earth. If you could turn that into plastic surgery, it'd be pretty cool.
Indeed. Robert Krulwich, ABC News.
So I had to get No, don't applaud that. I'm trying to show you that's just disgusting. That's what that is. So the question is, like, why would Peter Jennings do this? Why would you take a totally gripping marine biology story and torque it into some ridiculous thing about a Middle Eastern dictator? Because evening news shows have a rhythm. They have a deep routine. So they say every day, they say, what we do here is news, by which they mean this just in is their version of news. So I always thought, at one point when Peter was mad at me, he said, what do you think I do? I said, well, I think you have lunch with your friends, and then you read some writing that somebody writes for you at 4:30, and they pay you $13 million. That's what I think you do. He said, no. I said, I do. He said, you do this just in. The governor just got shot. The person just gave a press conference. He just won the election. Somebody just, had a crash. He said, well, what do you do? I said, I do this always is. He said, what? I said, well, like, it's my argument that this always is just as interesting as this just in. If I came on television in 1210 and I said, tonight the Earth is not flat, like, that's a great news story because the Earth, if I said the Earth has always been round, I mean, a lot of people personally go, oh, didn't know that. It's always been round. It's always that way. But that's news. And a lot of science is frankly just that. It's like you find out something that has been true all along, but you didn't know it, and now it's a chance to say it. So, but not at 6:30. You want to come in, or whoever is over there? Want to come in? Just come in and you can sit down. There's a chair. But not at 6:30 because the news shows, I think, are sort of a medley. You know the form. You have the big story on the top, in come the cruise missiles heading for Chicago, and then at the end there's like a kitten caught in a tree with a fireman. That's the situation. And on this particular day, Saddam Hussein was the This Just In theme, and everything had to fit the package. And I don't honestly think that they even thought about how ridiculous it was to make me fit into that form. But it was a non-Hussein, nothing but Hussein allowed sort of day. And that is, I knew that, which is why I made the offer. So all of us, whatever it is you do, you live in a world which is governed to some degree by routines, and you can choose to hate them, as I sometimes do, or you can choose to work with them, as I did in this case, or you can try to subvert them, as I will talk about in a few minutes. But there are so many of them. Like some of them in the news business are kind of useful, like weather at 6 minutes after the hour. And you know that's when you listen for the weather. Or traffic on the 10s, or sports right after the weather. That's a kind of predictable rhythm, and people like to know where it is and when it is, and they like to be there for it. But audiences tend to be extremely, extremely conservative. Once you have gotten used to a certain way of hearing, seeing, watching the news, or stories being told, you just don't want to have that thing changed. So you don't put sports on All Things Considered. It was like a 10-year fight about 20 years ago. People just didn't think somehow that sports should be there. I don't know why not. I mean, sports is a window into the world. It is also called All Things Considered, but not for sports, apparently. When Radiolab had its very first airing, we didn't know, Jay and I, what we had made exactly, so we gave them 5. We said, here are 5, and you should run them. And what they did was they ran them in place of Terry Gross's Fresh Air at 7:30, but they forgot to say that she would be back the next week. So the show runs, you know how it is when you're just starting. We're like practically holding hands thinking, this is so good. This is so wonderful. I can't wait to see the applause. It's going to start anyway. And we look at the emails, and all it says is, where is Terry? Where is Terry? Where is Terry? Who are these people? Where is Terry? Where is Terry? Where is Terry? Terry. I put it. What's this? She doesn't sound like Terry. Is Terry coming back? Is Terry? There's no reference to us except that we're not Terry. And Jan looked like really devastated. He said, I guess we're just terrible. I said, no, we are not terrible. We're just an inexplicable break in the routine of these people, this audience. They just wanted Terry. They didn't know who we were. All we have to do is get Terry to come on and say, I'll be back next week. These 2 people are here only for occasion. If you hate them, don't worry. And if you like them, at least open your ears to listen to this, because I'm supporting this, which she did. And then nothing changed. Where's Terry? But one would like to think that it would. And these routines in my business, they become so bizarre. If you ever watch 60 Minutes, you'll know they'll say, some important person will say, and then the narrator will say, Dr. Jones' order is going down the street, and then he'll say, so there's a voice, and then there's something that the narrator has to say. So during the narration, the person who you've been looking at, talking, suddenly walks down a corridor, carrying a folder or something. Now, when I got to Nightline, I thought, well, this will be interesting. I said, this is like so silly. So I said, I handed in a piece in which the man goes, and then you see him looking at the camera, looking and say, ready? I say, go! And he walks down the corridor. And I just kept that in, the whole staging. They said, well, you can't do that. I said, well, why? I mean, everybody knows people just don't randomly get up in the middle of a 60-minute and walk down a corridor. I mean, it's like it's an artifice. He said, no, we don't show the artifice. I said, well, why not? And they looked at me like I'm the stupid one, because in a way you are. Like if you watch the evening news, they all the time pull out the camera, and you see the anchorman at the desk and the robotic cameras and the directors. You know that it's a news show, but it seems to have some kind of official urgency because there's all these machines around. But in the breakfast shows, it's a lady and a man by a fireplace, and they never pull it out. You're supposed to believe that that's a fireplace at breakfast. Right? So, and that they live there somehow, and that at the end of the morning they just put little blankets on them, and then they're back the next day. Well, that's just ridiculous. But these are very honored things. You don't even know that they're honored until you try to break them. And there's also fashion in it, which I find quite interesting. Like if you were to listen to Walter Cronkite narrating a CBS Reports in 1972, what you'd hear is clear prose, cleanly written, mostly in the active tense. The street will never be crossed by him. George will cross the street. And Walter Cronkite will say this thing from the chest, as he learned to do at some early point in his career. And that voice and everything about the language and everything will convey a kind of easy omniscience. Like he knows what he's talking about. He has the authority of CBS, of his own reporting, and of the vast machine that is presenting this to you. And every bit of it has authority and crispness. We had until this morning a reporter at a Radiolab named Pat Walters. He just moved to San Francisco to pursue what he believes is the real future of the spoken word. You can ask me about that later. And he said, he comes in, he loves to write stumble. It's the most interesting thing. So he'll when he writes copy, he'll write I went to see Albert, I think his name is Albert, to talk about cherries. And when we got there, he opened the door, and I thought, well, was that a door? Anyway, he opened the door. Hey, this is all like written down. Like I think Walter Cronkite would look at it, no, because I know everything, and everything that I say always happens because I'm omniscient. And Pat Walters, who is just as ambitious as Walter Cronkite, I don't know if he'll be successful, but he actually has a chance, he writes as if he comes from no knowledge and is trying to get to some kind of knowledge. And in his 26 or 7-year-old brain, he feels that probably the most seductive and useful way to talk to his audience, and our audience, is to talk from uncertainty, and Walter Cronkite, in his time and in his place, was operating from pretty much the exact opposite place. These things, I think Walter Cronkite would be horrified by Pat Walters, and when I played Walter Cronkite to Pat Walters, he seemed puzzled and a little bit pitying whoever this Cronkite person is. But there are so many of these. I had at one point, here's one that's on television you have to be very careful about. If you say all in a sentence about people, let's say all the world's all the world's mothers right now. One time on Nightline, I decided I wanted to talk about the fertility rates changing in many places in the world. So I just gave I said to everybody, please bring, if you have anyone who's under 9 months old, could you please bring them to Studio B and dump them on the floor? So I had mothers, babies of all kinds. And I tried to get redheads, and I wanted to have every complete flavor of baby in the room, because here's what I know. If I go on television and I say, mothers all over the world are having fewer babies, if you gaze out at all the babies of the world, now, when I say that, every woman and many men, but most certainly every woman, watching television will look for their baby. They'll look for the white one, they'll look for the tan one, they'll look for the yellow one, they'll look for the green one, they'll look for whatever, they'll look for the redhead, whatever they are, they want to see, because they just want to make sure that they're included, that's about them. And if they don't find themselves, this is what they're hearing. This is what they're thinking. Where am I? Where am I? Where's my baby? Where's my baby? And if you don't know that, then you can't communicate to unless you say, all right, we tried for redheads and we tried for, yellow kids, but we couldn't find them either, so here, like, this one's kind of like yours. But you can't say that out loud, but you have to prepare for that. Now, at Radiolab, we confess openly that we're making a show. And we don't mind. In fact, we want you to notice that we are making a show. So if earphones fall off, that's fine. We always include that. We get kind of giddy. If there's sirens out the window in London, and the man sitting there goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Should I say that again?" Say, "No, just keep going." So, but there's sirens. Doesn't matter. We run the whole thing, the backs, the forth, the sirens, because we love. We know that there is a routine, and we know that there's something about, we think it's flattering the audience, because our general approach to this is, Jen, I don't know very much about what we're covering. We don't have degrees in any of these things, but we have curiosity, we have the discipline of our craft, and we think that's enough, and we think that pretty much puts us where most of our listeners are. There are a lot of curious people who would ask stupid questions if they dared, or if they had the opportunity, who would argue about what they've just heard, who would debate the meaning of what just happened, who would stumble their way, as Pat likes to do, through the scene, and we just feel like we're proxies for that. So let me give you an example, however, of how much fun it is to play with these things. We decided to do a story about the autonomic nervous system for a variety of reasons, which is when you breathe or wink or your heart's beating, you don't say, wink, it just winks, and your heart beats without your attention. This is business in your body that goes on below the level of consciousness. So we're going to get ready to do, this is the one called Tamar, I think, which is my wife's name. Is it one? See, that's the second one? The audio piece. Okay, well, don't do it yet. I'll introduce. Like, all of a sudden we're so ready. All right. So here's the thing about that. When you have a fight, you know what happens. Your heartbeat goes up, your mouth gets dry, your muscles tense. You don't say, "Oh, muscles get tense." This is just a flight. This is a normal thing that happens to people. It happens automatically. But what we were interested in is it happens at a different rate in men than in women. So when men and women fight, which they do all the time, ending the fight is a biologically different experience for the man and the woman, which is very fascinating to us. We didn't quite know how to go about doing this, and then Jad thought up an idea. He said, "Why don't we just you'll be in the middle of the story, and the phone will ring." So here's what happens. Now we can do it.
Yeah, that feeling is completely rooted in your flesh.
Well,
the brain has nothing to do with
a
it.
thought made me sad, and then my body felt.
Oh, crap. I forgot to turn the ringer off. Hold on. Hello? Oh, hi. Yeah, hold on 1 second. It's your wife.
Here? Hello?
Robert?
Yeah?
I can't believe you're still there. What are you doing there?
What do you mean, what am I doing here?
You were supposed to be home an hour ago.
Taylor, you called me in the studio. We're on the
I
air.
don't care.
What do you mean you don't
You
care?
were supposed to be home an hour ago. I reminded you this morning. I reminded you last night. It's just not important to you.
That's not such a big deal. I'll be back in
Actually, this
it's just a
is a perfect example of what we've been talking about.
No.
Robert's having a fight with his wife Tamar, and while he's fighting, inside his body his stomach is clenching, his heart is palpitating, hers is doing the same. Their brains are picking up these signals and thinking anger. Feel angry. I'm working with other people here.
My work is just as important as your work, and you've now screwed it up.
How did I screw it up? How did I screw up your work?
Your job.
Now, at a certain point, Robert will probably realize he has screwed up, and
You just get home.
he'll apologize.
Okay, if I get home and tell you, I'm really sorry. I know this is horrible.
Robert, is everything okay?
Yeah, it's just a second. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
Maybe like...
Now, when it comes to brains and bodies and men and women, the interesting thing is that when a man and woman fight, these systems in their body, the heart palpitating, the stomach clenching, while these systems do turn on at the same speed.
And it takes like 2 seconds.
According to Robert Spolsky,
Where there's an interesting gender difference is how long it takes to turn off the system.
and ladies, sorry in advance,
And in general, it turns off more slowly in women than in men.
which may explain something that happens to couples all the time.
Okay, I'm really sorry.
This just isn't right.
I know. Oh, I'm really sorry.
Like, here we are.
Maybe later we'll go
Okay.
do something. Or I'm really sorry.
Robert's stomach is relaxing.
This is really stupid, I know.
His heart is slowing.
Very stupid.
He thinks the fight might be over.
Okay. But, this is something you do all the time. Remember when we were having a dinner right after we got engaged and we went to the restaurant and I was waiting for you and I made the reservation and
That was in the car with me.
sitting there for like 45 minutes. You didn't even call.
I just apologized. Did you hear what just happened there?
It's this William James stuff coming back to haunt us a century later.
Sapolsky says sometimes the body actually tricks the brain. Tamar knows the fight is over mentally, but her body is still tense. Her heart is still racing, and her brain thinks, wait.
If my heart is still racing and I consciously know that this issue has been resolved, it must be because I'm still pissed off about that thing that happened in the Carter administration.
You minimize everything everybody does for you.
The brain fills a vacuum.
You have a list? You have a list there or something?
I do. I have a long list. Do you know how often you do this sort of thing?
I do it like one.
No, I can count on this. Do you believe your calls when they'll be out of town and says, should I make dinner for Robert? Because, of course, you can't make dinner for yourself and the kids. No.
I do make dinner. I have made
much of anything.
Baked potatoes last week, Wednesday. I made the baked potatoes.
That's just applying heat.
I want to thank my wife, Tamar Lewin, for what I think was a pretty startlingly performance, which I don't know how she did that because it's so unlike the rest of our marriage. The story, by the way, came from Robert Sapolsky, and he tells it about his wife, too, but they're not reporters, they're scientists, so they do it differently.
My wife's in the same business as me, so the very words we will say to each other is, honey, don't forget what the half-life is on the autonomic nervous system. Then suddenly it's all over with.
That's such a rare exchange between two people, you know.
We're just sentimentalists.
Okay, so that's not just an unusual way to describe the autonomic nervous system and the difference between, but it's obviously a break with the normal routine of doing this sort of thing. But there's a sort of subtle underplay, like, was Tamar really mad or just pretending to be mad? And the matter of fact, of course, she was obviously really mad. So a little bit of my real marriage kind of came tumbling out. And my sister called and said, don't ever do that again. That was just so nerve-wracking. So this is a performed science lesson that also included sort of a confession of a rocky kind of boy-girl relationship in a pretty great marriage, actually. But you don't really know whether this is real or not real, and you wonder about the boundaries. And this, I think, is the advantage. This is the perfume of surprise of what I'm talking about. Now, we have all kinds of rules about how to do this. We talk to scientists, then we create cartoons around what they say. We always bring the cartoons to them. They have to bless the cartoons. We don't do any surprise attacks because that can be terrible. But I think this leads then to the next obvious question, which is, what are the limits of this kind of experimentation? You have to know that whatever you are making in a context, and it will appear someplace in somebody's routine. So if we're talking about babies, then you want to be in the routine of mothers who notice their babies. If you talk about, well, here's one. I became aware that nature, in many, many odd ways, seems to love a B flat. I kept discovering instances in which B flat just became very important in a story. B flat, the note. And I got a friend of mine, John Kurz, who's a composer and a lyricist. I said, I'm going to just give you a collection of stories that I've made about B flats, and I want to, maybe we should do it as a musical, as an ode to B flats, in a journalism form. He said, okay. That was fine. But we decided to do it on Morning Edition, which has a certain tone. Now, if you're in the business and you want to fit into the business, and the business is going boom ba-dum 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 ba-dum, you can be a ba-dum, or a ba-dum, or a ba-dum, and you'll fit in there fine. But if you're then you'd be a ba-dum 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 ba-dum, and that would be that's what I would call, when we talk about a perpendicular. You want to have some kind of angularity. You want to be not like what's around you, but not so much unlike what's around you that you embarrass yourself, and more importantly, the people around you and the people who are listening to you, who would smile at a break in routine, but who get extremely nervous when you are around the corner. Now, so this is, why don't we just play the B flat? This is me and Josh Kurz celebrating B flat. This is a CD, and it's called, so that would be you the CD boy guy? Yes. You are the CD.
Yes.
Here we go.
Have you heard about B flat? A special magic frequency that is found all around in the world it abounds. There's something universal about B flat. Start this story.
Yes, start us off, Robert.
All right, then. I read that scientists at the American Museum of Natural History once found that if you play a B-flat to a male alligator...
How does one do that?
With a tuba.
Of course a tuba.
Absolutely. So I asked a tuba player, Phil Porter, of the Cypress Lake High School Marching Band in Florida, to play a B-flat to a pit of alligators. We did this for ABC television. He did it once. Then he did it a second time. And indeed, when the alligators heard the B-flat, they began to bellow. Presumably, they mistook the B-flat for an invading alligator.
Just when they hear B-flat?
That's right, just B-flat. You play male gators a middle C, you play them a G-sharp, they just sit there. But if you are a gator, there is something about a B-flat that makes you want to bite the tuba.
All this talk of B-flat has made me want to bite a tuba.
Have you heard about B-flat? A special magic frequency that even reptiles revile and respond to with bile by croaking loudly in B-flat.
All right, Robert, what's next?
Next is the story of Glenway Fripp, a piano tuner in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. One day, Mr. Fripp was climbing some stairs. He was humming roughly in B-flat when he hit a landing, and he noticed that his hum had somehow got away from him. So he wasn't humming, but his hum was still there, bouncing off the walls without him. And Glenway thought, well, this corner seems to be shaped to hold a B-flat. And we said, could you do this again?
So we're going to walk into this corner. I'm going to be singing B-flat, and all of a sudden my voice will disappear, and all you will hear is the resonance, because the resonance is almost equal to my voice. Okay, the note we're searching for is somewhere around this.
Okay, now we're going to put our mic into the corner and listen very, very closely. The corner has just grabbed hold of Mr. Glenway's tones. B-flat has just escaped.
You can't even hear my voice, right? And that's how I discovered this. You're just talking and you, wow, what is that weirdness jumping out at me from?
That weirdness is a B-flat that used to belong to Mr. Fripp, but no more.
This is Glenway Fripp.
Thanks, Glenway. Anyway, speaking of resonance, did you know that I can make my digestive tract resonate in the key of B-flat?
What?
That sounds difficult. Did you have to practice in it? Right, this is a morning show. I don't see how this is universal. If it were universal, we'd be talking about the universe, but we're just talking about Earth. Robert, why don't you give us something that's not as earthly that has to do with B-flat?
Very well. Far from Earth, in 2003, astronomers found a black hole 250 million light years away, sending waves through a cluster of gas. When they turned those waves into what for us would be a musical note, they found that black holes, in effect, hum, and this black hole was humming in...
Don't say, let me guess,
Oh, yeah?
B-flat.
Exactly.
I knew it.
Yes, B-flat, 57 octaves below middle C.
Wow, that's low.
Very low, very
Sort of
low.
like this. No, but a little lower. Lower.
Lower.
Going lower.
For whatever reason, that black hole was humming the B-flat, yes, very low, but for 2.5 billion years.
2.5 billion years. It's a long time to be humming the same thing over and over again.
Have you heard about B-flat? A special magic frequency that is found all around. What's that sound?
It's profound.
There's something universal about B-flat. There's something universal. It's all about B.
So people, this was on Operating Edition, people went, what was that? What was that? And...
Yes.
And
because you don't even get, because it is a little long and it is a little overworked. It is a little obnoxious. It's also a little funny and a little wonderful and a little. It's a kind of combination. You know, you're on a border of some sort, and if you're feeling dangerous, which I generally like to feel, you go ahead and you do it anyway. But oh boy, like when people don't like when you're out on the limb, when people don't like these things, they really don't like these things, and they really let you know it. Because after a while, when you have a track record, people, it's like people don't understand sometimes. Like if you're a baseball player of extraordinary talent and you're on the mound in an important game and you have an earned run average of like 0, like you never ever give up a run and you're just a really good ball player, but you got 3 balls on some guy and it's a very important thing, and 70% of the audience is yelling "You suck" as loud as they possibly can, but you are paid $17 million, so that's what you get paid. So you endure that. In this business, you don't get paid that kind of money. You don't get paid that. No one's going to stroke you, and when the rage comes, it comes like a real downpour. Not that this was even Steven. I think half the people thought, hey, that was really great, and half the people said that was just despicable. It's just interesting to me that it's despicable. It's not. No one said that was ho hum. Like either they liked it or they really hated it. Now I'm going to show you one that really got me in trouble. This was 20 years or so ago. It was on Good Morning America, and I was asked to do a piece that introduces the audience to sites, interesting sites on the internet. You have to understand that this was a really long time ago. This was 1995 or 1996. Most people didn't have computers yet, and these search engines were just beginning to come in, and no one knew how to write in the www code. It all seemed very scary. And the Good Morning America audience is a slightly older, a little bit less tech-savvy group of people. So Diane Sawyer said, here's what I want. I want an internet explainer, and I want somebody to come, like we have people say, here's some movies, here's a movie review, and they sit in a chair. Can we break that routine? That's what you wanted, break the routine, and just do it some different way where somebody comes in and shows off an internet site, even though most people who are watching the show aren't too clear what that is. So I said, well, I have an idea. And so I went into this room. ABC gave me like a union-free room, so I could just do anything I want. Because in a union shop, you have to have different people do different things. It's all very well organized, and they respect all these union jurisdictions. But I was put in a room where, by everybody's agreement, unions include, I could do anything I wanted. So I brought in Vin Liotta, my editor, who's Italian and has the best hands I've ever seen. And I said, okay, I'm going to write a script about a hand that doesn't like the internet. And Vin, you're going to be that hand. And your hand is going to be on television. That's the main character. I will do the voice of your hand. I will also do the voice of Robert. But you have to be the hand. And when I walked this into the studio, I thought, I don't know. There was, of course, David, by the great sculpture you will find in Florence, and there are a few other magnificent creations of art, but I think Vin and I have just created the newest one. And I was like so puffed up and so excited. So there's a bunch of them, but we did 10 in a joyous explosion.
WW.
Okay, so can we go back to the front of this one, I think, and then this is just the first one. This is the one that they saw at GMA first.
This is my hand, right? He does not like the internet. Well, I'm a little nervous, is the truth. Well, just do it. There's nothing to be nervous about. I just want you to write with your finger. I've never done this before. Like www.libraryspot.com. www.libraryspot.com. What is this thing? I think you're going to like it. It's a really easy-to-use library. All in the same place you can find, look at this. Information, please. The Library of Congress. The whole Library of Congress? I think so. And the Encyclopedia Britannica, and law libraries, and medical libraries, and music libraries, and picture libraries. All of these in the same spot? Yeah. So click on the Encyclopedia Britannica, please. Okay. Now watch this. Type in human H-A-N-D.
That's my name, H-A-N-D.
Right.
Right. You see, that's my first name.
Just click in hand, please.
All right.
Instantly, you're going to see, look, these are little essays. These are selections about hands from the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Good. The human hand is an impressive organ that distinguishes man from all living. Very nice sentiment here. Very nice.
And now, how about this? Hand, a grasping organ at the end of the forelimb of certain vertebrates.
You know, I grasp. I do grasp.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. I do.
Plus, now click here. You'll find 19,003 pictures of hands.
Oh, my
Click
God.
here. You'll find movies with the hand, the word hand, in the title. Click here. This is an instructional video on how to dry your hand.
Why do you need this?
Click here. You
I don't
get
know.
phrases that include the word hand.
That's
Basically,
good.
if you have a homework assignment on any subject in the world, it doesn't have to be hands. It could be anything.
Hands are good, though. I think.
Hands are good, but anything you need on any subject is accessible from this one site. Are you impressed?
Well, I'm using my opposable digit here. This is my salute to, what's this called?
LibrarySpot.
Yes.
No, it's LibrarySpot is one word.
Oh, sorry.
.com. Thank you.
So that's what they were. That's what they were. Actually, I can't, because I haven't seen these in like 10
This
years.
is right.
The next one is this guy, his pinky died.
And
his pinky, is this the next one? Oh, let me just take it for just a second out of curiosity.
like the internet.
And I would like a little privacy.
Why? What
here.
happened?
Well, my pinky just passed away.
Your pinky passed away?
Very sad thing, really. A little privacy, please, for me. The bright side is, though, he left me some bequests, a farmhouse in Kansas and a facility.
Your pinky left you property?
Yeah, well, he left me the addresses. I don't know what the properties look like
Well, you
at
could
all.
go to the internet.
This is not the time, not the place
Just
for that
type in
sort of...
www.TerraServer.
www.TerraServer. What is this?
Well, as you see, this is a map of the entire Earth.
Right, I see that.
And you say Pinky left you a property in Kansas.
Yeah.
You want to see it.
Well, I
don't you?
do want to see
Okay,
it.
so keep clicking toward Kansas.
All right.
Keep clicking.
Keep clicking.
Okay, this is Kansas. Now, because this is an atlas, we're going to switch to a map of Kansas. And now, if you can, please point to Pinky's farmhouse.
Well, the address said Route 163. This is 163, just west of Topeka. That would put it right here.
Okay, this is a combination Atlas spy satellite website. So we can now switch to the spy satellite feature. Here they show you the actual Soviet rocket that launched the satellites. The photos are now online.
Online?
So this is the same section of Kansas now seen from outer space.
From spy satellites?
From Russian, American photos. Now we're going to click in. Closer, closer. Okay. You see this?
Yeah, I see it.
Yes. This is Pinky's house.
You mean this is my house? This is my house.
Your house. It matches the address with, by the way, look here,
Yeah.
a car parked in the garage.
Well, Pinky was very fond of cars.
Now it's your car.
Yes, it is. Now, you got these spy photos for the whole country, for the whole place.
A lot of buildings, a lot of homes are on this website in spy photos.
Now, let me see my recreational facility.
Where is it?
It's in the Bronx.
The Bronx is in North America,
Yeah,
right?
of course it's in North America.
On the East Coast, right?
Yeah, of course it's in
New York City, right?
In New York City.
Now we're going to switch to photos.
All right. Yeah. Oh, look, there's the Hudson River. I see. Isn't that the Hudson?
This is now coming up Midtown.
Yeah,
And
all
where
right.
in the Bronx are we going?
157th Street. East 150th.
Okay, East 157th Street. We're moving in here.
All right,
Here it is.
good.
Wait a second.
Yeah,
Wait
right.
a second.
Right.
Pinky owned Yankee Stadium?
Well, he was always fond of diamonds. He used to say that.
I was Steinbrenner.
No, he's the Pinky behind Steinbrenner, according to this whatever it's called .com thing that you got here going. I don't know what.
It's called www.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just I haven't seen it. Oh, so I thought, okay, I just invented the wheel, and I was going to be like joy abounding. So the first day they put me on. This is like the best time you can go on Good Morning America, 7:35. It's like the high. It's like, you know, after the Secretary of State has said something, but before the Hostess Twinkie part. It's just like right in that soft spot around the half hour, and that's where everybody wants to be there. And they put me there with the first one, and there was a quiet. And then the next day, I was told that I should go. My time had been switched to 8:55. So that's the end of Good Morning America. When most every station is doing the weather and traffic, it's completely covered. It isn't rated. It isn't. And then in Good Morning America, you can either sit on the couch with the host, you can be downstairs, or you can be outside. I was neither of those three, and none of them. I was like on 49th Street. I think they just decided to put me on a remote so remote that it would send a signal to the entire world of the American Broadcasting Company, don't ever do that sort of thing.
You know, and I was astonished. I thought it was so. I don't know to this day whether I was wrong or whether it was Diane wrong to feel about it that way. But apparently it was so off the norm that it had become a perpendicular. I mean, angular, as I say, is nice. Perpendicular is murder. But who knows these things in advance? I think if you want to invent for a living, here's the way I don't insist on my inventions. I make them. If they work, they work. If they don't, I move on. I don't pretend always to understand why something has succeeded. I do a blog. I write every piece hoping that it will kill. I draw and stuff. And last week I got one of them did 860,000. That was on a Monday. And then the one on Wednesday, which I think was the next one up, did 12,300. This is the same copy in the same place in the same blog with the same publicity, with the same author, with the same hope, with the same effort. And there's an enormous difference, and I don't, you went from monster to molehill, really, and I can't explain why, and I don't know that I ever will be able to explain why. Now, I know there are going to be business people who are going to come around eventually and say, okay, these things are wrong, these things are right, you have to do more of those, so here's the new routine. That's what businesses do. And I will not ever follow that person's advice. And I know that businesses, like one time, I used to room with Andy Rooney at CBS for a while. We had an office shared together. And one day he looked over, he was sort of the way he was on television, he'd say, you're never going to be famous or wealthy. I said, why do you say that? He said, because you're not a short. What did he say? You're not a short sentence. I said, what does that mean? He says, look, I'm Andy Rooney. I hate toast. The guy who hates toast. Andy Rooney, guy who hates toast. I've been doing this for so long that they now say, oh, Andy Rooney, the guy. So they bought me. They gave me a contract. I became a short sentence. Now I'm a corporate asset. And they can say, look, we're CBS. We have Andy Rooney, the guy who hates toast. What are you? You're like, one day you do this, another day you do that. You're Robert, whatever, I don't remember what he does, because he does different things every day. You're failing your company. And I said, and you're failing your life with your thing that you're doing. We had this kind of relationship. It was actually kind of a loving relationship, actually, in a weird Rooney-esque way. But I realized that when you do this kind of thing, you do make choices, and sometimes it gets really hard, because there are some routines that I think that when you work for an organization or you work for an audience, both of whom are very routinized, you have to fight with both, and sometimes the fights are fights of principle. So one time, the Trade Center towers had just fallen down, and the firemen were working I call it the bathtub, the depression, working to find bodies of fellow firefighters or anybody who's living in the building, and they were raking the ground and so on. I had chosen to go in to that where you weren't allowed, with a guy named Joel Meyerowitz, who was kind of a street-fighting, weirdly wonderful photographer, who invented a credential for himself called mayoral photographer, laminated it about 50 times on the belief that all security guards believe in excessive lamination as a sign of officialness. And he went and wrote Mayor, whoever it was, Mayor Koch or Mayor Giuliani, and he got a letter back, and he cut out the emblem of the mayor on the side of the envelope, and used this letter set and all these things to make this seal with his name, Joel J. Meyerowitz. It was like ridiculous, and he wore it with a big band around his tummy. And instead of getting a secret camera, he got a Civil War camera. It was a tripod. It had a hood. He had to step into it like Brady in 1862, and it was ridiculous. And it was basically his cover. I mean, this guy was a really good street person. He figured, okay, sneaky isn't going to work here. Loud, obvious, and bravado is going to work great. So he's down there. I have a cameraman who's sneaking. He's got this great camera. But I'm sitting there, and we're going back. And while we're there, he's stepping back, and these two firemen who are working with their rakes, look at him, and they both burst out laughing and say, "Are you for real?" and so forth. And they then have a discussion. And since he was my main character, that exchange between the fireman and the photographer, I not only caught, but I included in the story. So this was when I was working at Nightline. So I wrote the story. We cut it up, and on Friday night specials, you had to show them around to various officials in the building. So I get a call from a very high person at ABC News who says, "Come over to my office for a second." He's a very nice guy. And he says, "Just have to cut out that scene with the laughing." I said, "What? Why?" He said, "Oh, well, it's not yet time for laughter. We take this very seriously. This is a very somber and important event. You don't always get that." I said, "No, I get that, but these people laughed. I didn't coach them. Joel stepped back. They laughed." He said, "Well, it's not what we want to air." I said, "What does that mean? It's not what you want to air. This happened." He said, "You don't have to take it out." I said, "I'm not taking it out. I'm not taking out something that happened. I'm not going to allow your sense of routine to dictate a sequence of events." No one was suggesting, by the way, that we say something that didn't happen. This was just going to take this thing that did happen out. And I wouldn't. I submitted the piece week after week after week with the laughter in, and they aired, I think they aired like 3 months later when it had become safe to laugh. That sort of thing, that's where you just stand up and you say no. So what are my standards then for what it is I do? I am very knowledgeable about routines. I am very careful about routines. I know that we have routines. I try not to relax into mine. I try to keep myself awake. Every story that we do has a little universe gathered around it, and it is a universe of particulars. And I honor those particulars in a very particular way. Jad and I look at it, listen to the details, figure out what music is in there this time, this once, right now, these facts, and we try to build a collage of sound and of paraphrasing and of noise, really, I guess you'd call it, and the words, to fit what we see. That's being true to the material, I think. We defy the audience. Our audience has objected to many of the things we do, even the great Radiolab audience. One time, I decided to do a story about why terrible things happen to nice people, and I chose Isaac from the Bible as my main character, and Abraham, as you know, tries to kill Isaac, and so we just took Isaac's point of view. It was set in a biblical situation. It was almost sort of delivered like a sermon, and all hell broke loose. I mean, people think they are listening to a science show. They do not expect to hear biblical characters treated like real people in a reverential tone and acting as if, particularly all those people who went to college in the last 20 years who've been taught that there is no such thing as Hamlet. There's only the man who wrote Hamlet, and he was a Protestant, or maybe he was a Catholic, and I don't know, that's what you're really listening to. But when I was in college, Hamlet was like, well, what will Hamlet do next? We got to talk about things like that. But our audience just didn't like hearing about Abraham, didn't like hearing about Isaac, and they were mean about it. And we said to them, it isn't your show. This is what we want to do, and we're doing it. And if you hate it so much, then go away until you don't hate it so much anymore. We don't want you to go away, but we're not going to become as cranky as you are. And then I think, if at all possible, the thing that most delights me, and I have many examples. I'm just going to give you to close with one of my favorites. We did a long series of pieces at one point about death. It was a lot of considering, like, well, how dead do you have? Can you be too dead for a certain organ transplant? Could you be not dead enough? When people jump off the Golden Gate Bridge and live, but were on their way to dying, what kind of thoughts do they have? What happens when people think you're dead, but you're not dead? Some people are locked in, who have become unlocked in. And it was very grim and kind of horrible, but very interesting. And then at the end of it, we were looking around for some sort of palate cleanser, and there was a guy I worked over at an NPR kid named Will Hoffman, and I kept looking at his website. It was just, he was working in radio, but his visual sense was just gorgeous. So I said to him, look, he and I had done a couple of videos together just for the fun of it. I said to him, here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you, I know you're only 23, or guess what he was, so you're much closer to being born than being dead, but anyway, let's just pretend that you're an old guy, and I want you to just celebrate the business of being alive. We've just talked intensely about being dead. So just find moments that you think make you feel rich, full of life. And you only have 3 weeks, and I'm going to give you a camera from your friend Julius's father, and you're going to have to couch surf, and I think I can give you like $400 to do this. And you know, I only set down one rule, which I'll mention later, one design rule. And when he came in, it's more or less what he brought me is more or less what you're going to see. This is called Moments, and it's a DVD. And when you fire it up, it'll be it was set to music, to an Icelandic group. And so whenever you can, we can just go ahead and play it. You want to start from the beginning, though.
The moment was... How would you define a moment?
I can't even say. I don't know. Ask me something simple. A moment in normal time. Normal time is this. What is a moment, though, honestly?
It's that thing, it's beyond the senses.
Moment.
I don't know.
So this is really what I live for. This is very simple. It had really only one rule when we sat down. I said to them, just watch the median. I said, if you're going to do, in order to unify all these very different images, you just draw a line right down the center. And if you think back, hands up, doors slamming, mailboxes rising, poop being stepped into, all that was actually going on right at the center. I said, I think there will be sort of a subterranean gravitational hold on the whole thing if you, and it'll lock you in. And when he brought this to me, I could just hear the key turning, and I sat there and I watched. And he made something amazing. So, thank you very much.
I'd like you to break your routine, please.
Sure.
Put it over
Okay.
there.
Right. Yeah. Excuse us here.
Now then, good. Shall we invite our friends in?
Yeah.
You can come in now. Are you still there? Come in and join us in our cozy room. Okay. Can I just grab that a second? Give you a break. That was really fantastic while we wait for people to reshuffle. I'm not sure if we told you this, but one of the main reasons that Justin and the students and I were so keen for you to come and talk to us, apart from you being utterly brilliant, is that we actually have the students study radio, podcasting, as part of their critical practice. We're really, that's one of our key classes. So that's sort of feeding into a lot of what we're thinking about. But I'll pop in some questions later, but I know you have a first one to get cracking with. So do you want to plunge in first? Yeah. Okay. So what we'll do is Justin will sort of run the Q&A to start with, and then we'll open up to questions from the audience. Okay?
Yeah, like Alice mentioned, we're doing podcasts, we're doing a lot of writing, and that's what you've been doing throughout your career, dabbling in different media. And I'm just wondering whether you could just talk a bit about the differences in the different mediums that you use in explaining things. Yeah. The different possibilities and the different sort of textures, perhaps.
I think when I started, I think everybody had one thing that they were trying to be good at. So people in radio were trying to be good at radio, and people in television were trying to be good at television. Television was divided. People who wanted to be on television, people wanted to produce television, people wanted to light television, people wanted to do the sound of television, and then people who were reporting were either backup editors or backfield editors, or the reporters, the byline reporters. And those were all specialties. And then people who were into design were doing something pretty much outside the field at the time. But come on in, everybody. Now, really, what's happened is everything is beginning to melt, as is happening in so many fields. And so, instead of being good at one thing, that's now an impoverished sort of position. I think you have to be good at a number of things, which is a range. So you have to be good at learning stuff. You have to be good at languages. You have to be good at math. You have to be good at, in our shop, you could be good at, like, we just have a guy who's really just great at classics, which is weird. Like, we just say, so what would Seneca say about this? Like, none of us we don't know anything about Romans, or he's South Asian, so he knows all these things. I don't know anything about these long poems by people from India. But he's got, like, wisdom, so we just squeeze him for wisdom. It's like we'll give you a situation. We were just doing it yesterday. This fellow came in who's a great editor, film editor, and did what's that movie where everybody's in a helicopter and they're playing Apocalypse Now. So I've lost proper nouns completely. I can't remember this guy's name either. But anyway, he came in and he said, here's this great story about it's Russia and Finland, 1941. Russia's always invading Finland, or Finland's invading Russia. So in this case, Russia was in Finland, but then the Nazis came and invaded everybody, so they were all a little bit busy. But still, they hated each other just enough to keep. And so the Russians had a lot of soldiers in Finland, and then they had to pull them out to fight Nazis, and they sent a boat to get their soldiers to go back to St. Petersburg or whatever, Leningrad, to fight the Nazis. But that day, the the Finns set fire to the forest, and the Russians all rushed to the shore. You didn't expect me to be going here on this question. And all the horses jumped into the lake, and the lake at that moment hit a particular state change, and all the horses were caught in a deep and sudden freeze, holding them in place. They all died there, and the next day the Finns sat on dead Russians and dead horses and played a carnival game. And Jad is going, "Whoa, we've got to do that." So that is just not true. I mean, horses are warm-blooded animals. Water would not congeal around them that way. They would not be a nice thing. And then someone goes to the web and finds this case where they have some kind of ice 9 thing. They put a little bacteria in the water. The water literally freezes. And we're like trying to figure out what. So we call the classics guy. He's with us. I said, like, what do you think? He said, I think you should slow down, as Confucius or as Cicero would say. And it's a very strange newsroom, to put it mildly, but it's a place, to answer your question finally, where we do prize multiple tasking, and we like people to read books or watch movies or listen to music intensely. We like musicianship, artistry, and to answer the very specific question you asked me, I keep branching out. So I've written for a while. I've done sound for a while. I've done TV for about 18, 20 years for a while. All the time, still doing radio at the same time. And I never gave up any of them. I just kept adding to them. And when I work with the, and I'm kind of older now than most people I'm used to be. I was the younger one. Now, as happens, I'm one of the older ones. But I lean in really hard when some kid comes in and does something that I don't like Will. I said to him, how did you do that? How did you get so many pictures? I mean, I assume that was the residuum of many more pictures. And so he showed me his notebooks where they came up with this, a set of scenarios, and they divided the days called the school, the park, the street. He's just a well-organized boy. And I think to myself, I have to be as well-organized as Will. So I'm constantly envying the people that I work with, and I think that's kind of nice. And I think the right way to approach this for yourself is to don't do things you can't do, like higher math or remembering people's names, but do try to do anything you might be able to do, and just see what happens.
To the program, I think. No, you keep it. It's right. You've got the most interesting things. Do come in if you want. Yeah, please come in. But I wonder, just to follow on from that a little bit, I wonder what it is about radio in particular, seeing as you've worked in all these different media, that is that allows you to take these certain risks, the certain performative quality, the certain danger zone that you're looking for. What is it about radio?
I think the advantage of radio is that it's co-authored. Like, people who listen to the radio don't realize what's going on. I'll say on television, let's imagine a house, and we'll put it on a hill. And I'll draw the house, and I'll put it on my hill, and people will stare at my work. So that is a distanced thing. And they may object to my house, may object to my... Or a cat may walk between them and the television set, and they simply forget what I'm talking about. If I say to you in your ear, particularly in buds, let's imagine together a house, and we'll put a little cloud on top. Now, you can't help yourself. You paint the house, and you paint the cloud. And all of a sudden, zones of dissonance that might have been between you and the TV guy are gone, because it's your house, it's your cloud, and you're together with this person. And if you know how, with your voice and with the way you write and the way you breathe, if you know how to keep the painter painting, who's not you, who's the person's listening to you, it could be 4 million different paintings, and it should be. But in a sense, we're all painting together. So that means there is more room to think. Since the data is being composed by the both of us, then the thinking about the data, there's just a little more room. And I think that is, with the exception of faces, fires, explosions, which TV's always going to be better at in movies. And those are big exceptions, faces particularly. Like, you can't, Meryl Streep on the radio would just die. No, but look at what she can do if you can see her face. So,
and octopuses
too. Yes, that would be a very hard radio piece. Octopus. Well, no, octopuses is okay. Yeah, but so that's what I think the advantage is. The advantage is that you are. It's free to be you and me, I suppose, in some way. Yeah.
But let's talk. You also mentioned. I love all the behind the scenes stuff. About you talk about painting this picture and it's very direct in here, but you also talk about this idea of collage and I'm imagining there's this kind of scripting process that goes on behind the scenes. Could you just
Well, we don't. We're competing against Ira Glass all the time. That's our main person to compete against. So we know that he writes, and everybody reads what they've written. So we decided very early on, in order to get Ira in the butt, we would not write, which is ridiculous because we don't ever know what we're talking about unless we write something. So what we write is we write lists, or sometimes we literally write the prose, and then I'll read it. So I'll say. Once upon a time, Alice went to the grocery store and bought some bananas, and then she laid. That's what's written here. And he goes, and then Jed will say, "Okay, you got that now?" I said, "What?" He said, "You got the gist?" I said, "Yeah." She goes to the grocery store. She gets bananas. I go, "Now throw it away." He says, and he said, "And be Bobby," which is what he said. So I said, "All right." So then I don't know what that means exactly. So I say. All right, so there's this girl, and she's hungry, I guess, and she goes, where does she go? She goes to the grocery store, I think, and you know what she likes. She likes bread. So he listens, he says, that's okay. No, he doesn't say, no, that we have like insane backstory. He says, I like the part where she doesn't know what she wants, but I think we all know what she wants. I said, well, so I'm like 3 of these later, I'm trying to remember, like she likes to go to the grocery store, but she doesn't like the bread. She likes the bread loud. And then he starts working on the musicality. So shouldn't you like the bread? I said, did I say that? He said, yeah, but you didn't say the bread. Because he's literally thinking it through as what he is. He's writing a musical composition. So he has, and I trust it in him, we both have a shared sense of what it is we're trying to say. And he's working really hard on some mysterious level to me, where he wants a certain sound because he believes that it will literally carry the meaning a little brighter and a little tighter. And when he gets it, he hears it. I sometimes don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I will spend time sometimes where I'm asked to go, are we done there? I said, no, another one, please? That's maybe a slight exaggeration, but it feels that way. Oh, yeah, that's my inner sense of what's going on. I'm sure he would describe it differently. You should invite him, get a whole different view of this. But I believe, however, that what he's about, and this certainly works. Here's how I know it works. I have 2 children who like me well enough. And I'm always on TV all the time, and when I got on TV, I would turn on the TV, and as you sometimes do, you hope that people like stay and watch you. Oh, you say, as if surprised, they're here. This is my one coming up. And they go, and then in the middle, they just walked out. Now, as a parent, you can't beg your children to stay in the living room to watch you. No parent can do that. I mean, unless you're Louis the 14th, because you say you're not going to be king unless you watch me be a king on the TV. So I just was humiliated. Then Jed took this. I've never been allowed myself to be edited by anybody. He takes these things and he puts them through his thing. And my children go. They sit there like zombies. They listen to everything I say, which is very humiliating. But also, I'm a competitor, so I have, somehow, he's got glue, this boy that I work with, so I just take his glue on me, and I get gluey. I don't always understand what's going on, but I do it, because I want to win.
I wanted to ask you whether you had someone in mind when you come up with all these stories. It seems like your children seem to be a very big one.
Well, no, actually, the people we have in mind is ourselves. Honestly, this is a totally solipsistic logic. We ask ourselves, well, what are we interested in? Like right now, we're completely fascinated by some white Jewish guy from New Jersey who has suddenly become the gatekeeper in the hip hop world and is saying, you shouldn't do that. He says to all these inner city black people. And unbelievably enough, they sort of listen to him, and they have these sit-downs, and we are going to them. I don't know any idea what's going on, but I am completely interested in Jed's being interested in it. So sometimes I just go, and sometimes it goes in exactly in the reverse. Like I get interested in some sciencey thing, and he goes, and then I just put. But what we do is we seduce each other. I say like, this is really going to be good, and then if it isn't, we drop it by mutual agreement. If it is, then we just. And there's a little triumph before you get your kids, and before you get an audience, big or small, you get each other. And that's been the amazing part of this particular duet. I would write for editors, I write for myself most of the time in my life. In this case, I write for this other person, and I'm trying to see whether I can catch, hold, and keep his attention, and he me. And that seems to take care of business. We had no idea this was going to be successful. I mean, really none. And we didn't do it to be successful. It seemed, I mean, if someone said, oh, let's do 11 hours a year on physics and chemistry for an hour, I mean, that's just not anything that anyone's going to go listen to. And that they do is just amazing. We had a screening at the Angelica about 8 years ago, and so many people came, we had to get on taxi cabs and ask them to leave because we thought we'd maybe get 200 people, and we got like 800. And that was embarrassing. It's hard for me to own this success. I absolutely love doing it so much. And this is like 10 years in. And I just consider, this is going to sound silly, but I just think it's this extraordinary good luck that I just happen to bump into this person who has a really mind that interests me all the time, and then I have one that interests him, and we get to go play like this, and we keep attracting all these really cool people who just throw things at us and throw things at us to play with, and that's amazing. I mean, it's just amazing, and that you would show up here to hear about it. It's just not the normal thing. I mean, it's not like we're not ambitious. We are. But this was an accidental success, I think.
Okay, but I think there are some methods in the accidents. And we need help because we have a similar problem in that we're trying to communicate compelling, engaging stories about design. And design faces a similar kind of brand image problem as physics and chemistry, I think. And so I'm wondering, how do we do this? How do we engage our audiences at the same time while being tough and defying them? Well, how do we make these kind of...
Well, when I was on the breakfast show at CBS, I did a Design Friday. So there was this guy, Tibor Kalman was his name. He made this watch. So, you heard him. So he used to write this column for the Graphic Institute, AIGA, whatever that is, American Institute of Graphic Art. So I didn't think anyone but me. Somebody gave me one of these. I said, "Gee, these are really cool." And so I read them, and I called the guy up. We had a sort of sad finish. I'll explain in a minute. But I called him, and these were the kind of problems he asked. Here's a candy mint that is called AIDS. And this was 1988. So that was an epidemic, and it was a candy mint. So you can't sell a candy mint called AIDS. What have you got? Oh, I got AIDS. No, that's not good. So the question was, how do you take a product which was a great product name, which has then become odious? How do you change the name, and what do you do to the packaging? So we just did a story called "What Would You Say?" Or the U.S. government wanted to put a sign on a plutonium pile, and so the question was. Tibor said, well, what can we say that would be readable and understandable 10,000 years hence? So we brought into the TV studio the cave paintings and we talked about, obviously, what are they saying? They're saying, whoa, love these aurochs and buffaloes. Love them a lot, or maybe just worship them, or maybe we don't like them at all, and they're going to kill us. Hand, go away, or come in, I don't know, we don't know. And it was just fun to try to deconstruct what the cave guys were saying. So now, let's try to do that for stay away from this pile. And it turned out to be really hard, like where do you put the sign? So those were all design stories, but they were also puzzles. And they were puzzles that you solve by basically design solutions. So we came up with about 10 of them, and we just ran it as a series over time. And then, he was from Budapest, and people from Budapest are very elegantly mannered. And I am from New York, from a family where food was on the table for a very short time. So I was in my household. You ate quickly.
We just saw you eating chips. So.
Well, there you go. Yes, so you saw. Yes. So Tibor and I go to. We had never really lunched together. We were sitting at the table. It was on 46th Street, at some fancy place. And in the middle of the meal, he gets up, puts down his napkin, doesn't say goodbye, and leaves. Leaves, I thought, to go to the bathroom, but never came back. So I called his wife, whom I knew. She's still around. She's actually a big designer of her own. And I said, what happened to Timo? She said, he didn't like the speed at which you were eating. I mean, he's from Budapest. He couldn't bear being at the same table with you. Well, couldn't he, said something? I mean, I know how to slow down. I mean, I have a sister who says slow down all the time. He could have been like her. Not that it worked too well, but he says no. So that was the end of it. But I thought he was completely amazing. I mean, just an amazing. We would do these quiz programs like, here are corporate logos from 1880. See if you can tell us what this company does. It wasn't so hard. Arm and Hammer, boom, boom, boom. It was like some sort of obviously some kind of a mining operation. But now IBM, it's IBM and the lines in the middle. Like, what do? I don't know. They do an I and a B and an M and maybe some kind of, I don't know. You chew on those things or what? I don't know. And so we tried to figure out what had happened to corporate design, that they had essentially broken free of tasks. And those were things you just put in front of the audience. Say, look, here's what U.S. Steel had on its stationery back in 1910. Here's what Diamond Sugar had on its stationery in 1910. Here's what Continental Baking had on its. And now look at, here are the exact same companies in 1992, and God knows what they do, because maybe they do everything, So these are just windows to. This is not unlike what Radiolab does. You just take something and then you use it as a probe. You don't use it for the thing it is. You use it as a tool to find out other things.
Okay, take notes, students. Very good. Should we take a couple of questions? Students, questions?
Yeah. I've been trying to figure out in my head how to phrase this question, and I feel a little awkward about it. First of all, at the outset, I want to say what I think I've been watching stuff. Middle school, seeing you on TV and not knowing who you were, but you were doing really interesting things. So I really appreciate that. The thing that's been rolling around in my head, and I hope I can phrase it in a way that works, is this idea of having routines and breaking routines. I think early on when you were talking about the way Radiolab is set up, and that, I don't remember his name, but the writing in of the uhs and the ums, and the fact that stays in when you create the show. It feels like that in itself becomes somewhat of a routine. In other words, it starts out as a breaking of a routine, but in fact, I sort of ponder, well, you leave in the uhs and the ums, but if there was a 10-minute, I dropped my water, let's all clean it up, you probably, it'd be interesting, maybe.
I don't think so.
But I think that's the question, because I guess part of the question in my head is, I think the most experimental thing usually is I don't think so. In other words,
no, I mean, there's no question that everything we do is artificial. It's a show. It has a beginning and an end, and it has a job to do, and everything. It's a manufacture. It is not like real life, which you wouldn't tune in to hear, and we wouldn't care to do. So yes, it is entirely artificial. I think what happens is you try out different routines, which is a different thing from trying out. I don't know whether you can think of it in sort of, because of the hip-hop stuff, I'm thinking a lot about authenticity, whatever that means in that world. But we don't have any in broadcasting. We just have, if there's anything authentic, it's called here's something we want to talk about. What is the best way to talk about this? Now, of course, we will sometimes talk about it in the same way, partly because we're the same people, partly because we have a friendship which has its own routines. So therefore, we've been putting more and more people on the air instead of us, so that we get different routines and different things. But no, you'll never escape the fact that this is a construct, and it will always suffer a little bit from being too something. What you hope is that it's too noisy and loud on Monday, and too soft and quiet 2 years later, and too articulate one year and too messy the other. So in other words, you're continuing to scramble your eggs. But you will never be told, you've licked it, you've come up with a completely artificial, unartificial. I don't think there's such a thing, in my sense.
Okay.
Let's hear from.
Yesterday about Neil deGrasse Tyson was kind of talking about a lot about the mainstreaming of science, sort of his delight in sort of the triumph of logic in science. And I was wondering if you sort of see that as part of your mission, and in a way see this as one of your standards that you set for yourselves.
I think all of us. I mean, we have I think a political sense that we live in a democracy, but it's a representative democracy. We have these people who are taking care of our money at the Fed and taking care of our defense at the Pentagon, and taking care of our future in the laboratories and whatever. And I think it's the wrong position to take, that I'll just let them do their job because I don't understand it. What we try to do very consciously is we go up to the scientists and we say, like, so how do you know this? And you don't treat them with deference. You treat them with curiosity and all that it implies. And you model a way of talking to people who have an awful big pedigree, and you just act like, they have to work for you in this moment and explain to you. And certainly Neil is very, very good at that. And but in one of the more recent times that he was on our show, he called us up and said that we had done a piece about dropping cats that he found in physics terms wrong, as did Brian Greene. So we brought him and Brian on the show, and then David Quammen, who was our reporter on the falling cats, and we just did a whole other show called "What Was Wrong with What We Did, Guys?" And then and the audience sided rather strongly with us for some reason, and then went after Neil. And he wrote and said, well, like, why did they treat me that way? And I said, well, this is the thing about this world that we're like, yes, you can democratize, but it's also coming back at you. When I started, you'd go on television, you go, la, 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 and then you get like 7 letters 2 weeks or 4 days later. Now, as soon as you go on, there are people who are jumping on you, dancing on your head, calling you names, or congratulating you. And the noise is new, particularly for people who've been doing it a while, and it takes a little getting used to. Some people turn off the noise, and they don't allow the comment sections in some places. I'm convinced that it's a better, healthier world to get punched around by a lot of people, because I think it's only fair. Fair, is that the right word? I think it's only just, never only fair, because sometimes I find it very unfair, but it seems just that people who are in the audience get to put a platform under them and say, just as we do to our scientists, how come? What are you talking about? Where did you get that? You don't know that. So this is true Jeffersonian, like, if there's going to be a marketplace of ideas, it's getting rougher all the time. And it's not to everybody's taste, but I think it's much better than the respectful quiet that we had myself.
Okay. So yeah, you were talking about being curious all the time, and I guess you're talking about at the same time the media environment has become much more rougher. So, but what has kept you curious and doing what you've been doing for so long? And it seems like you're never going to stop doing it.
I think it's my mom, probably. My mom was one of those people who could get on an escalator at Bloomingdale's, and you'd have one flight to go from like the cosmetics floor to women's separates on the second floor. And some lady would just be next to her because it was a broad enough escalator. By the time they got to the top of the woman at the top would be saying, so I divorced him. Why did I divorce him? Because because he hated me in exactly the way you just said. And I don't know how my mother did that. She would get these people to, like do Oprah-like turns. And my sister and I we are able, she's a New York Times photographer. We could just walk down the street. She will see things. She'll see more things. She'll see more things than anybody I know. Always has. oh, look at that. Like, why is that? Is that gum or whatever? Well, don't touch it. Well, it is gum. Look, it's pink. Don't touch it. It's like a black thing. Like she just goes and finds things. And so that's just something that we got, I think. And I don't know that it's it's teachable. I think it's not always a blessing, because you don't always want to pick up other people's gum on the street.
Well, I would like to invite everyone to come next door to have some wine, cheese, and gum. Before we do that, I would love everybody to join me in thanking once again the fabulous Robert Krulwich.